This is the Carse of Balquhiderock, an area of flat, hard ground with undulations in which pools of water regularly form after periods of heavy rain. The Carse is enclosed by two bounding waters, the Bannockburn and the Pell Stream. In 1314, in a surprise dawn attack, King Robert the Bruce led his army on foot in 3 divisions out of Balquhiderock Wood and on to this Carse, and right up to the lines of the enemy camp. And there he defeated the greatest army in the world. As we look north towards the lines of the Pell Stream, a formidable flow of water in 1314, note the modern-day zigzag road, which is made to get around pools of water that form in the Carse after heavy rain. This road is shown on every map dating back to 1750 and 1746. The chroniclers mention why the English camped in the Carse. Therefore, the English camped that night in the Carse and had everyone clean and make ready their equipment before morning for the battle. And because there were pools in the Carse. The pools of water were of paramount importance for such a large army. The tactics of Robert the Bruce were to get his men as close as possible to close off the Carse and deny the English cavalry the room and the speed to get momentum into a cavalry charge. Beyond you lies Balquhiderock Wood. In 1314, the wood stretched all the way down through the modern housing development onto the Carse floor. Bruce led his troops down here around 4 a.m. on the morning of the 24th of June, before marching right towards the English camp. Beyond Balquhiderock Woods lies the dry field of Balquhiderock, a natural fortress, a rounded hill with deep depressions, an area that the Scots successfully defended in separate battles on day one. The Scots would make camp that night on the dry field of Balquhiderock. They would have their councils of war, and they would make preparations next morning to march upon the English camp that numbered over 20,000 strong. Today we're at the Battle of Bannockburn. Right behind you there, the Central Division under Robert the Bruce. Randolph, Earl of Moray, is over to the left. James Douglas, commanding the right position. This is the period in the battle that we call the Rout, when the Scots army broke through. King Edward is up here on the knoll with his commanders. They are in confusion because they did not expect to see the Scots. It's the early hours of the morning, but it's now about 4:30 a.m. The English heavy cavalry charge has failed, and the Scots have broken through English lines. King Edward is led from the field by his royal retinue. What happens next is mass panic. The English take flight. Some of the horsemen who couldn't even get into the battle with the rest of the foot soldiers, now they have gone where the Bannockburn and the Pell Stream meet, and then they go into the River Forth. But the majority, some were killed there, some were drowned in the Forth. But the vast majority of them, many, many more, are killed fleeing into the South Carse. And we're going to go down there and we're going to take a look at that part of the Bannockburn where the vast part of the English army perished. Today the A91 road runs directly through the Carse. The Bannockburn comes under the A91 at what is known as the Great Bend, and it twists and turns its way as we look southwards into the South Carse. The chroniclers tell us that the English, during the rout, that many were killed between their camp and the Bannockburn. Now you can see the Bannockburn just come into sight. The other side of the A91, that thick group of trees there on top of the knoll, would have been the camp of King Edward II, and where he could overlook and see his entire army. Now as the Bannockburn comes into sight, and we look southwards towards Redhall Farm, you will see the many twists and turns that lend character to this river and towards what is known as the Great Ditch. This was an ideal camping area for the English army. The chances are they camped here before, after Falkirk in 1298, when Edward was marching through the country, and at the siege of Stirling in 1304. The English camp knew it well, knew it so well. But little did they realise that Bruce would see it as a death trap for them. And this is where he would choose to fight. The Bannockburn eventually comes back under the A91 and it meets with the Pell Stream and then flows into the mighty River Forth. This is where the main rout of the Battle of Bannockburn took place. South of the A91 and into the South Carse, where many fled when the battle was lost. Just a small reminder before we go any further, people, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Please like, comment and share to anyone that you think might be interested in this. So we're in the south side of the Carse. Many English are killed on the other side of the Bannockburn. Now, what we're going to talk about is what they refer to as the ditch, the Great Ditch. Before you hear the Bannockburn, now the Vita Edwardi Secondi does not know the name of the Bannockburn. It does not know the name. It refers to the Great Ditch that many fell upon, were entrapped in and perished in. But the Scala Chronica tells of the Great Ditch called the Bannockburn, where many men floundered and they went tumbling over each other. Barber spoke about the Carse being strewn with pools of water. Now, the Bannockburn at high tide. We have to understand battlefield conditions at the time. You might say, you can't possibly tell what the weather was 700, 750 years ago. But the Carse of Balquhiderock is unlike any other carse in the area. From the dry field, after a period of heavy rain, and when the rain has ceased, water comes underneath from the escarpment down into the karst floor where the water table is high. Water forms in the undulations of the ground, and only then can it drain towards the River Forth. Thus, the Bannockburn is in full spate, and we're going to take a look at the salient area where it can be in 40 to 70 yards wide, 10 to 11 foot deep. An absolute death trap. But this is the part of the Bannockburn. Look how steep these bankings are here. Just have a look at that. You imagine going in there. That is a good 7-8 feet from where I'm standing down onto the Bannockburn. You imagine going in there and trying to get up and over the other side when you are being pursued by Scots who are thirsty on victory. They are bloodthirsty on victory, and they are pursuing these invaders where they're absolutely merciless and they're being killed in large numbers. So when you hear of the Great Ditch, I am standing here at least, and this is by no means the steepest part, but I am a good 10, 11 feet down to the Bannockburn. Now, when it is in spate, when the river is violent, someone panicking has got to cross this, get over there, and get up the far side of the banking. And they are running for their lives, folks. Imagine how you would feel yourself. They have the enemy, the Scots, in hot pursuit. They are throwing away anything that is weighing them down, anything encumbersome, including weaponry, armoury if they had it. Horses are going to fall over here. They're going to throw their riders. This is the Great Ditch that they talk about, where many of the army perished, and Barber had heard of someone. Here is the scale of the thing. The ditch was stacked so full of bodies that you could walk over dry shod. Now that, the image of that, is terrifying. Now what you can see, just look how wide this part of the Bannockburn is. Now this is part of the salient, so when you see how high those sides are on the other side there, and how high this water can rise, because of the muck that's washed away, the water is brown, so the depth is, you cannot tell how deep it is, and you can tell how horse, rider, and foot soldier, you don't stop to think how deep something is when your life's in peril. You go for it. It is an absolute death trap. The English describe this as an evil, deep, wet marsh. Now when this water rises, all of the high ground indeed becomes marshy. This is the south side of the Carse, people. This is the Great Bend. Look at the steepness of that banking. Now I just want you to imagine picturing yourself running for your life, adrenaline pumping through your body, dead bodies lying, floating in the water, horses thrashing around, and you are desperately trying to climb the muddy banks, not dry like it is now, but the muddy banks of that burn. And you have thousands of spearmen with their axes and some with their bows coming right after you. As Robert Burns said, welcome to your gory bed. So this is the South Carse. Now remember, this was also part of the English camp. The A91 is over the other side of those trees. But with those many thousands of people, horses, wagons, and after a period of heavy rain, this is high ground here. Look how this slopes. Look at the depth of this, down to the Bannockburn here. Now, this is going to be treacherous in terms of being slidey. You're not going to be sure-footed here. And as I just walk down this steep escarpment here, this is their only way out. You pick the nearest escape point. You don't have time to look for a better point. Now, this is a perfectly dry summer's day. Look at the height of that banking on the other side. You imagine that after a period of heavy rain, in this river greatly swollen, probably up to where I'm standing now, and then trying to swim over, get through dead bodies, and get yourself up, and not necessarily over to safety, even if you make it to the other side. A deathbed. So as you can see how low I am compared to the high ground, this is what your English army, the vast amount of them, this is their escape point. There's no doubt about it that this is part of what they refer to as the ditch. They've got to get up and over to safety. Look what I'm walking through. Look how treacherous this is and how low I am. Now, if I'm a Scot, it's much easier to pursue than it is to be chased. And if I'm an Englishman with many Scots coming after me and I'm coming down here, I might get down here at speed. That speed is more than halved by the time I reach that burn. And with those Scots coming after me with 12, 14-foot pikes, some of them may even have liked to get a little bit closer to get their daggers out and cut your throat or bring that axe down upon your head. This would have been a killing spree. This is where you're slowed down. This is where death entails. It's to get up and over that side. This ground here, it does not favour anyone trying to get to safety, but this is what happened during the Rout of Bannockburn. Many thousands, not hundreds, thousands are entrapped here. The faceless, the nameless people that will never know. They've been lost in the sands of time. Only the people present that day who survived, who made it south. Some people were killed by the women folk coming out from towns and villages, no doubt lured with the hope of safekeeping and having their throats cut on the way home. Few would make it to safety. King Edward II and his retinue were hotly pursued by James Douglas. They had a standoff a few times, but Edward would make it to Dunbar and then on to Berwick. Douglas hot in his tail all the way. This place littered with bodies, muddy, inhospitable, and the stress of clinging to life hanging around the area like a dark cloud. This is what it would have been like in Bannockburn 1314. No place to be if you're an invader experiencing and running into the very jaws of defeat. A man will do anything to cling to life, even when the circumstances are desperate. This lovely, wild garden spot on this beautiful summer day was once a scene of desperation for many numbers of men who fled together, who died together, who watched their comrades die before them, and for some, the select few who made it up and over to safety. The long and arduous journey home lay before them. You know, folks, I'm passionate about all of the Scottish history. We're my heroes they're involved in, but Bannockburn is by far, it captivated me since I was a 10-year-old boy, and it still does, just as much. And the reason I do this is because it has deep meaning in my life. As I always sort of say, this is the way I would like to have been taught history, not the dry, old, dusty way that it's taught in schools. I don't want you to know your history, people. I want you to feel it, because that's the way I feel about it. And if you can do that, it means more now than it ever did. It's your history. Never forget that. You know, people say that the Bannockburn battlefield, it's too changed. Too much time has passed. But when you come here, when you walk the ground and walk the Bannockburn, you'll see how deep that burn is. You'll see how it flows. It's not changed much. Dumyat and the Ochil Hills in the background have not changed. The Wallace Monument on top of the Abbey Crag has not changed. This valley here that I walk in today is the very valley that those Scots pursued their invaders and sent them home. As always, people, Bannockburn is my passion, is my forte when it comes to this time. This battlefield never ever seems to dampen my passion at all. It's been tremendous getting out here on this summer's day. The weather would have been slightly different in the times of the battle, but in any season getting out here. But here's where it would have been realistic, with the only exception, the dampness, the heavy rain, the wet, and the width and the depth of the Bannockburn making all the difference. If you've enjoyed this video, please support the channel, help it grow, help spread awareness of our history, your history, by subscribing, liking, comment and share this post to anyone that you think might have an interest in it. Thanks for walking in the footsteps, folks.